I'd appreciate it. All right, if you're familiar with and read the HCCLA listserv, I'm sure you've seen Stephen Cabler's name. It's like, hey, does anyone know a polygraph guy I can use? And this is generally who was discussed. So Stephen Cabler's going to talk to us about polygraphs and their use, and we appreciate him coming and talking to us. Take it away.
Like I said, my name is Stephen Cavler, local polygraph here in Houston. Hello. Boy, I'm a pacer. All right, I'll try to do this. I'm going to kind of use that TV so I can make sure to keep up where I'm at. As we go along, please ask as many questions. There are no bad... Can't hear me? Oh, my goodness. Is this on? All right. I'll try to scream. Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. Oh, I'm just not close enough. Goodness. Not much of a singer. Okay, I'm going to leave my... Well, I'm not going to leave it up there. There's cards up here if anybody wants to get a card afterwards. So what's polygraph? Yeah, I'm going to kind of read through some of these slides, and then I'll talk off of those when necessary. A polygraph examination is a scientific test which collects physiological data from an individual with the purpose of detecting reactions associated with dishonesty. People call it a lie detector, and that's really not a good definition of a polygraph because it's not what it does. It is a detection of deception, okay? Indicators that a person appears to be being deceptive. There's three things that we use. Respiratory, so a person's breathing, inhalation, exhalation. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that stuff because it'd bore you and it won't make a difference for you. Electrodermal skin response, skin resistance, sweat gland activity. Are you guys hearing me? Thank you. Okay. In cardiovascular, it's not blood pressure that we're reading, just blood volume. Okay. Holy moly. Okay. All right. Polygraph does not include the analysis of physiology associated with the voice. So you know there's voice stress analysts out there. We don't do that. Don't think it's very effective. And believe me, I would use it in my own arsenal if it was. Okay, how's the polygraph used? So state and federal agencies use polygraph as a tool to assist in ongoing investigations, which I believe is the best use for polygraph at all. I work with the Harris County Sheriff's Department and about 20 other smaller agencies around Houston, and that really is the way, for the most part, that polygraph should be used to help you assist in moving forward. It's not the all-end, it's not the decision maker, nor should it be used that way. Except in cases where obviously there's no other evidence provided, and it's a very good, useful tool. Attorneys use polygraph to determine whether or not they can advise their clients to consent to taking a polygraph with an agency. So you got two choices. Give them an outside polygraph, see how they're going to do, basically see if they're telling you the truth or not before you allow them to go and take an agency polygraph. Because I can assure you that if they fail that polygraph at the agency, it's probably not going to go well after that. And they've got you at that point. The other way is for grand jury packets. I know I do some work for some of you guys in here. Some of you I may do work for, but just don't know your faces. Probably, and I'm going to guess at this statistic, but I bet it's pretty close in the ballpark. We were just talking about it outside. Probably 70% of my caseload, criminal caseload, is some kind of sexual assault against a child or physical abuse against a child. Physical abuse, obviously there's going to be signs of what's happened, but with sexual assault, typically you're going to get a case where you have an outcry that's come months, years later, often in the middle of a divorce. There are no witnesses to it. There's no physical evidence of any kind. And you're going to be putting together a grand jury packet for that person with not a whole lot in it. But if you can send that packet with a past polygraph, it's really pretty powerful. I don't know how many of you guys use them, but the polygraph is getting a lot of no bills in those types of cases because it's really all you have. It's all you have to look at. Spouses, infidelity, I hate them, but they exist. Yeah. There are no winners in those kind of cases. Believe me, if you have enough evidence to think your spouse is cheating, you probably don't need a polygraph. I literally tell them that because it's going to be a nightmare for me no matter which way it goes. Employers that have suffered some sort of financial loss and believes an employee to be responsible. I think most of you guys are criminal in here, so you probably don't come across this much, but There are lots of laws involved when it comes to testing an employee. It's not so simple. There's lots of paperwork. Both positive and negative results can help you guys in preparing a defense for your client. Obviously, if a person comes to me or any other private examiner and they don't do very well on that exam, you're not going to let them go and take a polygraph with an agency or anybody for that matter. When they do take a polygraph with a private examiner, that's privileged information. No one's going to know that they took that test except the attorney who sent them and the person, hopefully. A positive result may further damage, further damage brought on by false allegations. Horse trailer guy. So I made that little note to myself, and my story is pretty early on when I was doing polygraphs. A guy came in. I was actually doing this polygraph for the sheriff's department. He was a horse trainer, taught kids to ride horses. A troubled little girl whose parents brought her out there pretty often. She'd gotten in trouble for something at home, so she says, well, the horse trailer guy sexually assaulted me. So he comes in, he quickly agrees to take a polygraph and was willing to do anything really that they wanted him to do. He had not done this crime, he said. So he comes in. The little girl even gave a description of the trailer that he supposedly took her in that was completely inaccurate. There wasn't much about the allegation that seemed true, and he passed his polygraph pretty easily. So at the end of it, I was congratulating him, and hey, great, you passed the polygraph, good. They'll take this information. It's going to mean something to these detectives. And he says, well, that's great, but it's not going to save my business. It's not going to save my relationship with my friends or my family. And that's very true. And so certainly it was for him, and it was in that case. Trust was a big part of his business. People bring kids every day. But people just like that do use polygraph all the time to vindicate themselves when you've got really nothing else. I mean, there's no way to prove, well, I guess you guys do this every day, so I probably shouldn't say that. It's difficult to prove you didn't do something, not as difficult to prove you did. So, negative results. I think these help a defense attorney quite a bit as well. My attorney used, not for me criminally, by the way, my attorney likes to throw around the word client control. Is that something you guys talk about all the time? Yeah, she used that with me a lot. Anyway, you have these guys who, everything points to them, regardless of what the issue is, what the case is. They're probably good for whatever they did, but you're a defense attorney, and your job is to defend them the best that you can. So they fail a polygraph, and this is a useful tool when you're having to negotiate what to do with your client next, when they want you to win a trial for them, when there's not much going in their favor. You can kind of manage them a little bit with, well, if you'd have been able to tell the truth and pass, this may have helped. Anyway, you see where we're going with that. Let's see. Okay, this is a biggie. So for you guys that I do work with, I'm going to get information from an attorney most of the time. These are the critical parts where things can go really bad for us, and having an understanding of what good expectations of what your polygraph examiner can and cannot do obviously is going to benefit you in the long run. So question formulation is probably one of the most important things that we do in a polygraph. It matters how you say it and what you say. We are required to have in any one polygraph a single target issue, okay? I'll try to give a good example. If a person is accused of stealing a car, 2 days later he stole another car, another day later he commits murder. You have him, you're defending him, and you have all these three issues, right? I can't do a polygraph and talk about, the car you stole Monday, the car you stole Wednesday, and the murder you committed on Thursday. It's just not how it works. All of those things play in, they're factors that are used when determining accuracy. A guy may have done one thing and not done another, and if he fails his polygraph, what have you learned from it? Well, you're not really sure. It doesn't work like many people think, well, he did good on this question, but he did bad on that question, so he did this, but he didn't do that. Polygraph is an all or nothing, okay? You either pass or you fail, so you're either being honest or you're not. Single target issue gives us the answer we're looking for. If he passes, then he's been truthful about this target. If he fails, he appears to be untruthful about this target. So no polygraph should ever discuss two things at the same time. Can't do it. So let's talk about the question formulation. There are lots of do's and don'ts in polygraphs. If Have you guys had that case ever where you're defending a guy who says, well, I didn't murder that guy. He was alive when I walked away, right? But you did shoot him, right? Very, very important in question construction, because when a guy answers a question to a polygraph, you want it to benefit his case. You want him to pass a polygraph because he's told the truth about the case or about the incident. So you would never use murder. You would use whatever defines the action that caused the murder. Shooting, running over with a car, stabbing, whatever. Did you stab Joe? You would never say, did you murder Joe? And attorneys are notorious for wanting to get all the little details in a single sentence, because when you're arguing a case, those things are very important. But for a polygraph, all those are not. We need that. There are no ands, no ors. Short and sweet, to the point. Did you shoot Joe? And that's all you're going to ever get out of polygraph. And if you're getting more, I want to find a new one. Same thing with rape. What does rape mean to one person versus the next? It can be very, very different. So we use words that describe what the law says rape is. You know, did such and such ever tell you she did not want to be sexual with you? Did such and such ever physically resist your sexual advances? Did such and such ever tell you no? Did you have sexual intercourse with this person without their consent? So we're describing what rape would be when we ask those questions. And again, we want them as short as possible. We don't want to give somebody a lot to think about when they're deciding whether or not they're answering yes or no to a question. Again, same thing. Overt acts goes along with what we've already discussed. So information that I would want an attorney to provide me. If you guys have an offense report, that's fantastic. I'm going to be able to get everything from that I need. I'm part of your work product, so I can have that information. Any specific charges. What we really want when we get information, and I don't have to have that documentation, but what I need from you is not to say, well, he's been accused of sexual assault. I need more than that. Who's accusing him? Where were they? How was it alleged to have happened? And what exactly did happen according to the allegations? The worst thing that can happen, I think, is that you do a polygraph, and we do these sometimes where we don't have a lot of information. It's early on in the defense, but they want to get that polygraph done. They know what somebody's saying broadly happened without much detail. So I'm going to use more broad questions, and we don't have a choice. I guess the danger in that is that later on you'll have a detective come and say, well, you guys didn't cover the issue. The issue is more specific to this. I try to make my questions where if we're, for example, if we're saying sexual assault, it doesn't really matter what the allegation is. For it to have been sexual assault, it's going to have to be covered in one of these questions. It's not always perfectly possible, but I try to do the best I can to do that. So when a person comes in, another thing that would do, I can't speak for all polygraph examiners on some of this. I know how I do it. I'm going to get questions. I'm going to formulate questions before a test, and I'm going to send those to the attorney so that we can make sure that we're all on the same page, that things are going the direction that you feel like it should go. Ultimately, though, you may or may not be happy with what we have to use for questions. We can't just use whatever you want. It's got to follow along the rules. When the client comes in, there's not going to be any surprises. We're going to sit down while he's not strapped up in a polygraph chair. We're going to go over the allegations. They're going to give us their version of what happened. We're going to review relevant questions with them at that time, and then we're going to conduct an exam once we're satisfied that they've given what they're going to give. Answer-wise. Examiners will explain. So yes, we're going to explain the testing phase. So this right here is an area that is really, really important to polygraph. I don't know if any of you guys have worked with it and you get a lot of inconclusives, false positives. I mean, this is where a lot of these things can happen. People don't take polygraphs every day. They don't know what they should do. They don't know what they shouldn't do. You talk to these people about sitting still and what that can cause if they don't. Talk to people about their breathing. Most of the time when you get a polygraph report back that says a person was controlling their breathing, well, The reality is that can happen in almost every polygraph because it's human nature to feel those things on you and want to resist that. It's not natural. So having a good explanation with that person about the fact that it's not supposed to feel natural, the efforts that you put into forcing yourself to calm down because these apparatuses allow you to more clearly feel that anxiety that you have and that everybody feels that anxiety. You know, a person who comes out of a polygraph and says, well, I probably failed because I was so nervous. It's just not even close to possible. I doubt that I can't tell you how many thousands that I've done, but I doubt there's ever been a single solitary person that's come in to take a polygraph who wasn't just nervous as heck. You're gonna be. Even for those who are innocent, I mean, the very fact that this polygraph can hold a lot of weight as to what's gonna happen in my future is enough to make you a nervous wreck. Consistency passes polygraphs, inconsistency fails. So if you're on a scale of 1 to 10 and you're a freaked out 11 when it comes to being nervous, I don't care. I don't care if you're an 18, as long as I keep seeing an 18 or something in that range, that's consistent and that's normal, okay? So everybody has a different baseline. And most people think that if they come in and give a large reaction that they're gonna fail a polygraph, and it's just not quite that simple. It's not how it works. And after the polygraph, we're going to evaluate the charts, make a determination at that point. What I do most of the time, if it's a defense attorney, then I'm going to tell that person that I'm going to have results later, and I'm going to get with the defense attorney and allow them to decide how they want to relay the message, be it good or bad, and I'll let them do that. If I'm working for an agency, I would say that the only difference, which nobody probably wants to hear this, but it's part of it, the only difference when I do this for a law enforcement agency versus for a defense attorney is that post-result, they want to know why you failed when you failed, and a defense attorney is not interested in that information. Most are not. I have some who are. And so that's the difference. Distractions. Let's talk about that for a second. I have a few, I've pretty much convinced everybody to stop at this point, but I have a few people who want, yes.